Begin Test 3. The date is 5th of April, 2058. This is Dr. Samuel Aiden, and I'll be the overseer of this test. Good morning, Subject 3. Can you hear me clearly? Hello? Is this working? Everything is working, so why can't you hear me? Subject 3, can you hear me? I swear if you're another mute, let me just check up on your file. Let's see. They're not mute or deaf, so why aren't you responding? Oh! It says here you've got severe social anxiety, difficulty speaking with others, and incapable of basic human interaction. How did you even get this job if you can barely hold a normal conversation? Anyway, that doesn't matter. As long as you can hear me, that's fine. Let me just explain how this works. You should know already since you were required to read the contract before you signed it, but I'll just run you over the basics. We here at Quanti specialize in quantum research and experiments. You're here to test out a new experiment called the Electromagnetic Field Regulator, or EMFR for short. You've already been given the device, and it should be strapped around your hip. To put it simply, it's a very powerful and advanced magnet. It allows you to control metals and interact with other magnets. I'll explain more when we get to the test. Before we begin, though, I'd like to remind you that if you die, your family will be sent payment as compensation. Anyway, let's begin. I know you're probably excited to get to the magnet stuff, but first we have to make sure you've got basic human function. For this test, just pick up the keycard and open the door. If this is too much for you to handle, then I don't think this is the type of experiment for you. Test 1 passed. Now we can get to the EMFR. There should be a button on the left side of the device. If you press it, a blue beam should shoot out. It's simple. If it comes into contact with a metal, it starts pulling it towards you, like a normal magnet should. In the room is a metal ball, and a hole. Use the magnet to pull the ball into the hole. Pretty simple, right? Nice, you passed test 2. There's more you can do than just pulling. A magnet has 2 poles, like you should know from grade school. The beam you used before was your north pole, and it pulls things towards it. However, you have also got a south pole. There should be another button on the right side of your device. If you press it, a red beam shoots out. It does the opposite of what the blue beam does. Now, you see the giant metal ball. Try pushing it until you can go around it. Test 3 solved. Let's get to the next one. Now that you understand how the EMFR works, let's do a test that requires you to use both of the poles. There are 4 balls and 4 holes, each of them color-coded. Here you need to get each ball into the corresponding hole. Actually, now that I think about it, it wouldn't really work if you were colorblind. You just have to guess what color is what. But thankfully you're not colorblind, or at least I don't think so. Good, so you're not colorblind. Let's move on. Now, this device can do much more than just pulling and pushing metal balls. As you might know from 3rd grade science, the opposite poles of 2 magnets attract each other, so the north poles and south poles get pulled towards each other. That also applies to your magnet. If you look up, you'll see a red magnet. Alright, nicely done. But that's not all. Like I said before, opposite poles attract each other. However, if the poles of the same type interact, they repel each other. So the north pole of one magnet repels the north pole of another magnet. Now, in front of you is a blue magnet on the floor. Try shooting it with your blue beam and see what happens. Alrighty, let's get to the next one. Okay, so for this test, we'll combine everything you've been faced with so far. Let's see how you do. Now this is why I warned you about dying. In front of you is a gap filled with acid. I know it looks like water, but trust me, it isn't. If you fall, it's good you didn't fall down there. I wouldn't have wanted to hear your screams. Anyway, let's move on. You know what? Screw it. I'm dropping the professionalism. I wasn't even involved in the making of this experiment. I was brought here as a substitute because the guy that was supposed to be the overseer died. You've got all the basics figured out, so you'll manage. Ah, so you are a smart cookie. Let's get to... Oh, right. I forgot about this one. You see the glass beneath you? Your magnet can actually interact with the things behind it, meaning you can move the metal ball through the maze even if there's glass between you. I'm sure you'll figure it out. Nicely done. Test 8 solved. So, how are you? Oh, yeah, sorry, I won't pressure you to talk, no worries. I'll just talk a little bit about myself, you know. You don't need to listen to me. If you don't want to, that's perfectly fine. But I wanted to tell you, I'm not actually involved at all with this experiment. I work at a different branch of quanti, one that focuses on quark rearrangement. I was just brought here as a substitute because I've overseen a few tests and whatnot. At the time, I was just an apprentice, but with the success of that test, I got a promotion. Now I can actually call myself Dr. Samuel Aiden. It's nice working with my teacher as an equal, rather than an apprentice. Alrighty, test 9 passed. This kind of reminds me of the other test I oversaw. We were testing out a device called the Quantum Size Regulator, or QSR for short. It rearranged and added quarks to whatever thing it was attached to. which basically just meant it could change the size of any object it was attached to. We were seeing how it affected humans and made a few puzzles similar to this experiment. My teacher, Dr. Weaver, the inventor of the QSR, was usually the one who oversaw the tests, but he got sick one day, so I was made overseer. And you know what? One of the subjects I oversaw, subject 4, was mute, meaning they didn't talk to me the entire time. And now that I'm overseeing another test, I end up with someone with severe social anxiety. Funny how that works out. Great, you can move on. Anyway, when the test succeeded, we were able to convince the higher-ups to give us more funding. Because up until that point, we were actually working with just scrap. But with increased funding, we were actually able to streamline the QSR to perfection. We're also working on bigger tests, but we still have to see if we get permission to proceed with them. Actually, I'm curious how much funding these guys got. It's probably somewhere on here. Hold on. Let's see, EMFR funding. Oh, come on! They got so much more funding than we got originally. What is this bullshit? Why does an experiment on a glorified magnet get more attention than we did? Dr. Weaver worked his ass off to invent something that could change science forever. But these guys, with a magnet, got more? For crying out loud. I mean, it says here that they only have 2/3 of the manpower we had. Okay, so I guess it balances out. Anyway, let's move on to test 12. Wait, so you're subject 3. I'm actually kind of interested in what happened to the previous subjects. The ones in my experiment before subject 4 all had terrible fates, so I'm curious if you had the same luck. Let's see. Let's see here. Test 1. Failure when the subject turned on the EMFR. All the metals in her blood were also affected by the magnet. They all burst out of her body, puncturing several organs and leading to death in just a few seconds. Yikes, that has got to be one painful death. Well, let's see about subject 2. Ah, here you go. Test 2. Failure when the subject began pulling the metal ball towards themselves. There was nothing that controlled how fast the ball went, meaning the ball traveled faster than a cannonball. The subject's body was decimated on impact. By the time it was all over, the subject was unrecognizable, and his remains were thrown down the dumpster chute. Yeah, looks like they had the same luck as we did. But hey, you haven't died yet, so I guess that's progress. Alright, let's get to the last one. You know what? I'm gonna go to the cafeteria and grab myself a snack. I won't get in trouble, don't worry. I'll just edit the footage to make it look like I was here the entire time. Just continue the test, it's not too difficult. I'll be back in a bit. Don't die. You know what? I'm gonna go to the cafeteria and grab myself a snack. I won't get in trouble, don't worry. I'll just edit the footage to make it look like I was here the entire time. Just continue the test, it's not too difficult. I'll be back in a bit. Don't die. Alright, I'm back. Got myself some snacks. I hope things didn't get too difficult while I was gone. Ah, and that's all of them. Nicely done. All tests have been completed. You know, that was just supposed to be a substitute job, but I had fun. And you? Any injuries or nausea? No? Great! Then everything went without a hitch. I think I've gotten pretty good as an overseer. I'll open the door in just a bit, where you'll get your payment. And me? Nah. I'll finish eating and then get back to my branch of quanti to continue with my experiments. So goodbye, Subject 3. Thank you for participating. No, shoot. I always forget I have to end these things professionally. Test 3, successful. All tests completed, and no abnormalities in the test subject. The date is 5th of April, 2058. Overseer, Dr. Samuel Layden. End test 3.